Welcome, everybody. It's great to have everybody here. We're very excited to be talking today about the psychology of marketing with a very special expert who we will introduce momentarily. I'm Michael Movitz, co-founder of Brandjectory, and here as usual with my partners, Tom Malengo and Susan Bryanton. If you are not yet familiar with Brandjectory, we are a platform that helps early stage CPG founders connect with CPG investors and helps founders prepare for the capital raise process and understand how to build an investable CPG business. We do this through both an online platform and offline facilitated virtual meetings. Excuse me. Our four pillars are our network, our content, resources, and process. And today's webinar is an example of one of those pieces of content and education where we're bringing the best of the ecosystem to you that is beyond just the capital raise financial element, because we know that it takes a lot of different sides and elements and expertises to grow the business. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Tom, and we'll get into it.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here again. Michael explained what Brandjectory is. Of course, if you have any questions afterwards, reach out to myself, Tom at brandjectory.com or Michael at brandjectory.com. Happy to answer any questions you have about Brandjectory. Hello to everybody that I know, and I hope to at some point connect with everybody who I don't know. So we thank you all for being here. I want to introduce Jorge Inda Meza. I've had the pleasure of talking to Jorge a few times about what he does and the way he approaches marketing, and it's very different than just simply your messaging and simply the way your product looks. He will bring us a lot deeper into how you connect with the consumer. That's something we talk a lot about here when we work with you individually at Brandjectory and your profile reviews. We talk a lot about what it is that the consumer is doing when they choose you off the shelf. And I think Jorge is going to give us some insights that really explain how that consumer reacts to the message and the marketing and the media that you put out there. And he's going to do it with some great examples. And I was excited to hear from him. I'm a nerd in some ways. I love this stuff. But on the other hand, it's really interesting. And now we're going to turn it over to Jorge. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. And we will make sure we get to all your questions, especially at the end. If something's pertinent when you ask it, we'll try to get it in front of Jorge, but otherwise we'll answer all the questions at the end, but don't hesitate to put them out there. Jorge, please go forward. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. I'm super excited. And I'm also a nerd, and please put in the chat if you're also a nerd of marketing and strategies and tactics. And, you also get into it. If you own your business, I think you really get into you're thinking all the time of what you can do to do that extra conversion or extra email list or extra sale. We're going to talk about marketing psychology for CPG brands, which
audience today. We hope you feel the support, understand the value, and see the business development.
Okay, so let's see if we can
firsthand as we hear from our speakers today. For more information on certification and all that WeMake has to offer.
Oh, that's Brandjectory, which is really important as well. So pay attention to that. Well, we get started. Okay, well, maybe, that's great. Anyway, so that piece is also good. But let's talk about brand psychology. And just without further ado, I do want to start with a bit of a story why this is different and why I got into it the way I got into it. And this is back to same here, Josh. This is back to I think this was 2016, and I was in this focus group, and some of you have even focus groups. And this is a dim lit room this was outside the airport in Los Angeles, and we were showing. I was at the brand side at that time, a beer brand, and we were showing campaign after campaign to consumers. These were Hispanic consumers. Mostly, I would say, exclusively male Hispanic consumers in Los Angeles. And we're showing campaign after campaign, concept after concept. And they would just be like, no, I don't care. I want Modelo Especial. I don't care about that. That campaign doesn't speak to me. I'm just not interested. And we were just like breaking our brains, like, why don't they like us? And I think that's oftentimes what we see. Like, we think we have, for messaging, we think we have an amazing product, and yet, like, what is it? And we threw in, we had this idea of having an experiential activity where we're going to have basically on Sundays, we're going to do events sponsoring soccer. There's going to be some food, and so on and so forth. So the moderator showed a visual, which was this huge jar of beer was glistening. It was foamy. It was almost dripping. And he talked about, imagine this on a Sunday, and you're going to have carne asadas with your friends. We're going to do soccer events and so on. And you could see the eyes of the audience go like this: cold beer. It's really hot out there. Carne asada. Sign me up. I want that. That's what I want. And ultimately, we did something related to that. But what I really took away from that is sometimes beyond the rational piece that we're trying to communicate, and really is when we hit the nerve, when we have something so primal, and there is such emotion that we elicit, that we can really penetrate, and we can really have people go like, okay, maybe I can give it a shot. And then there's a pathway that we're going to talk about today to walk, so that we can ultimately bring in alongside the ride. My passion is CPG. This is what I've done for all my life. This is what I like. This is the only thing I know how to do. So I love it. I spent the first 12 years of my career at Procter & Gamble. The next, for the first 8, the next 12 at Anheuser-Busch, which has been in the news a lot. In the last 4 years, I've primarily focused on the hemp and cannabis business, the plant-based business, doing it basically a lot of the brand positioning and brand strategy and go-to-market and growth strategies for CPG brands. And we're going to talk a bit about some of those examples. And before those examples, for those of you that do like Greek and Roman history, like you, Tom, I'm not sure if you remember this metaphor of the chariot of the 2 horses. And Plato used to say, you know what, humans and the human spirit, the human soul, is driven by 2 horses. One is virtuous and always is trying to do the right thing and thinks about things. The other is kind of wild and is trying to give way to our irrational impulses, to our instincts. And Plato said, this chariot symbolizes the human soul. And then there is these two kind of horses that are pulling us, right? And funnily enough, 2,000 years later or more, I think, more than 2,000, a gentleman which you will have heard about, Daniel Kahneman, wrote a book based on a lot of research called Thinking Fast and Slow, and he talks about 2 systems, how the human brain makes decisions based in 2 systems. And there is the system 1 thinking and system 2 thinking. And they're very different, and we use both. But we are, as marketers, not always cognizant of those systems and how our communication is adapted to those systems. So what are they? The system 1 thinking is very fast. It's automatic, it's frequent, it's emotional, it's subconscious. It's this horse that is irrational, right? It's used for everyday decisions, gut instincts. You get into the car, you're driving, you see somebody passing by, you're going to brake. You're not even going to think, should I brake? You're going to brake immediately. This system 1 goes, take an action. It's very fast and it's very efficient. It doesn't waste a lot of energy on the brain. The problem is that it's prone to biases and errors. And we see that in society today, our brain, we see somebody, and very quickly, we make a judgment call of that person based on the clothes, based on the way they speak, based on where we met them, based on the context. Our brain goes to like, oh, this person is like this. And this comes from, hundreds of thousands and millions of years ago, where if we are in the wild and we see stripes with yellow, our ancestors that kind of stayed longer to watch what it was, they didn't make it. The ancestors that run away because they thought it was a tiger, those are the ones that made it. So that system 1 is really attuned to making these fast decisions. An example, you can very quickly notice some of the body language. An angry face in a crowd, you can really quickly go like, okay, is there some danger there as well? With a system 2, which got developed much later in the life of our brain, which is 2 million years old, is much more flow, it's more effortful. We don't use it that often. You know, when we need to move jobs, when we need to perhaps, you know, choose a new career, have a discussion with somebody. It's more conscious, more logical. It's used for complex decision making. It does use deliberation and self-control, but it's very expensive in terms of the resources that is for a brain. It really slows us down. It's really taxing, and that's why when you're doing something that is mentally taxing, we feel like, oh wow, that was something, because the brain is consuming so much energy that our whole body feels a little heavy. For example, doing math. Now, here is the situation here. The system 1 is the system 1. It's the one that's been there forever, essentially. Only 2% of the time, this I think it's a million or so years, can we have system 1, which is Jimmy with his phone, kind of like looking at the world a little bit differently. But for the most part, we have a bit of a monkey or a chimp kind of making decisions on our behalf. And the issue is that when we are marketing to people, we're trying to market to Jimmy here, but more often than not, is not Jimmy who's going to make the decision. It's going to be the 2 million year old system that we have. And the best example that I found about this kind of decision making and how system 1 versus system 2 works, you know, I think there is this ad that reflects that really well, which I'll show you in a minute. And please tell me, hopefully you can hear also the sound. Okay, let's try.
You won't find the toughness of a Ram 1500 combined with the legendary power of a Hemi V8 in any other truck. It's a beautiful thing. Guts, glory, Ram.
So, all right, I don't know how many of you have seen horses when you're driving. I don't see as many. But boy, when I see that commercial, my system 1 goes like, oh yeah, I'm having that strength, that power, that freedom. That truck is for me. That truck is for I'm a tough guy. At least I want to be a tough guy. That thing is really talking to me, not on a system 1 level. It's talking to me, sorry, system 2, at the system 1 level. It's really eliciting these emotions of power, of strength, and authority without even actually saying that message. At the end, they just sign with it, with grit and power. The voice also makes a big impact as well of the voiceover, and that is a great example of some communication speaking directly to system 1, similarly to Corona. And that's how over the last 25 years or so, it has managed to be such a unique position, because the moment Corona, the moment you see Corona, there is this association to, wow, for one moment, I would like to be on the beach and just relax and forget about my boss, my work, my lower sales, my taxes, the culture wars, etc., etc. Just this moment of relaxation. And you won't be surprised to know that most of the sales of Corona are not in beaches. It's actually everywhere but a beach. But they have, in a very powerful way, established that emotional connection in people's brains, that the moment you have a Corona, you're transported to this place. And again, it's really just talking to that, 2 million year old monkey brain that we have, without actually trying to convince very rationally. And there is a space for rational persuasion. And we'll talk about many other levers for persuasion. But the point that I'm trying to highlight here is that when we're thinking of communication, we need to come back to the principle. Are we speaking directly to the guts of people, to the 2 million year old brain that is fast, intuitive, and interprets stimuli based on emotion, not necessarily on reason? And then I'll just have a couple of examples here that are, again, visuals that don't necessarily say much, but they convey a lot to our system 1. don't touch. And then this, imagine you're in the beach. Oh my God, how amazing would it be to have this shade, especially in today's weather. Or the next one, again, of Harley Davidson, a brand that I love because of its consistency. Unfollow, screw it, let's ride. Again, I don't know how many people that have Harley Davidsons. They're not necessarily the tough guys that this portrays, but on that weekend when I'm not doing accounting on my computer, I want to feel like that. I see that of like ghetto garments, sandblast frequently behind 18-wheelers, beat clean with a crowbar. That's again that is going to that's the water in me, at least for the weekend, at least for the moment that I'm not even riding my bike, but I'm wearing something that is Harley Davidson. And this principle obviously applies across channels. You don't have to have a TV commercial with horses running and speaking to the manhood, when it comes to males, about this big truck. You have it across the board in social. This is a cannabis brand. For those of you that know cannabis, Purple Cookies is a particular strain, and they dramatize it extremely well here. And this, compared to a lot of the others pieces they have put, generates a lot of engagement and attention. Again, it engages that system 1, 2. Here is one principle that I love for us to try in our businesses. Is the principle that to talk to this system 1, we really have very little time. We can talk to system 2, in more depth, but for system 1, we like to say you really have like half a second. So I'm going to do a little exercise. So I'd love to for everybody to pay just attention for one moment and look at your screens. And I'm going to show you a website. Okay, I'm going to show you a website of a consumer good product, and I'm going to show it to you for half a second, essentially almost like a second. And then I'd love for you to just see, interpret what you see basically from your guts. You're not going to have enough time to read anything. I'm just going to show it like really quickly. I'm going to get out, and then in the chat, I'm going to ask you what you got. All right, you ready? Everybody ready? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready. All right, here we go. Look at your screen because it's going to go really fast. All right. Whoa, that was too fast. I'm going to do it one more time because I may have gone maybe more than half a second, less than half a second. Okay, here we go. All right. Can you tell me on the chat? Okay, so Josh, you already said something. Medicine. What did you get? Did you get something? What is that? What any reactions? Anything that we got? Better sleep. Okay. Somebody, you guys were able to read that. Hotter. Interesting. Hotter. The word strength. Crafted. I only saw text. Better sex. Somebody read it. Great. Fleet time management. Yeah. So I'm going to do 2 more examples, and I love to do the same exercise. So you guys ready? Look at your screen. Gonna go kind of fast. That was, again, half a second. What did you see? Chill, relaxing, sleep time management, CBD, calming herbs. Okay, we're getting there. CBD, bonds. Okay, great. Palm tree, vacation, relax. There you go. So we're starting to get a little bit more of a feeling of what we see. I'm going to show you one last website. You guys ready? 1, 2, 3. Here we go. All right. So let me just go back here. What do we get? That final one. Hopefully you get to see it. What do we have? Smoothie, healthy. Shake, smoothie, supplement, superfood, smoothie mix, your daily blend, supplements, etc. Clean eating. Okay, dry mix, great. So at a very unconscious level, here's what we're registering. Let me just go to the first website. I'd argue this is not the strongest impact you want to make when you're talking to System 1 brain. The color yellow is not particularly appealing. It just signals danger, especially with color black. Maybe there's a B there. The font's definitely hard to read. So the first impression, even though you get into it later, is not great. It's not what you want to go to. This is a little better because there are first concept, implicit codes that our brain takes without the need for us to explain. The palm tree is an implicit code. Chair is an implicit code. The color is another implicit code. Obviously, then we have text that is explicit. We're explicitly saying, kick back and relax. But everything else that we're conveying here implicitly is actually supporting that same message. Similarly with this, what we have here is we have what looks like an athletic person that looks like he's in her kitchen with, about to prepare a smoothie. But you also get, even if you couldn't read the text, you also get a feel of, okay, this is something that is about health and wellness, even if we were not on a stage. So again, the implicit codes that we talk here are like direct keys to the brain. So they speak to system one. So here, if you have post-it notes or somewhere to note, what I'd love for you to do is go back when you have time and review some of your touch points, either a social media post, a cover in your pitch deck for your investor, your website homepage, your landing page, and do that exercise, just 1 second or half a second. Are there implicit codes that convey the main benefit or a main differentiator that our brand is trying to do? I think that is an exercise that sometimes is sobering because we tend to lean on the more rational side, but really the implicit codes are going to do so much heavy lifting for our brands. And this has been proven with the scientific method, with science. There's been a ton of research. This company is called 602. They're a market research company. They tracked almost 1,000 campaigns over 3 years with very specific methodology. And they tracked the results on sales between campaigns that were purely rational or whether there was a strong emotional component. And at the beginning, it's kind of close, but over time, that emotional component starts to accrue, especially with consistency. So what we're saying here is emotion for sure sells. To not kind of make a long story too long, most emotions can sell. Fear sells, of course. Love sells. The emotion that sells the most, however, this is measured with probes and neuromarketing techniques, is actually happiness, for what it's worth. So if there is a way for our messaging to convey that, to convey happiness or elicit happiness, you're going to have a better shot at anchoring your brand into people's brains. Now, changing minds is not just emotion. I mean, that is a huge part. I'd argue it's almost the biggest part. But there are other pillars to that, to the house of persuading people to change their mind, to try our product, to recommend our solution, to remember us when they go to the store, when they go to the shelf, etc. You will be familiar with all of them or most of them. Reason, of course, this is argument. This is our table of superiority versus our competitors. The bullet points, the check marks versus our competition, the reason. Rewards, obviously used very often in retail, promotional emails, Mother's Day sale, etc., etc. Resources, incredibly important, of course, if you send an email a month versus if you send an email a week, at the end of the year, the brand that sent 4 emails instead of a month instead of one is basically 4 times as stronger than one. So resources, right? The level of muscle. And then we get into the more esoteric ones. Resonance. How our message and everything that has to do with the context of our message resonates with consumers. And I think here it's important to highlight that resonance has valence. You can have positive resonance. You can have negative resonance. I'm a fan of the Lakers. I'm a fan of LeBron James. And if he shows up kind of recommending Los Lobos, I may be more open to go like, yeah, I'll try it. I mean, the guy is amazing. Family man, champion, etc., etc. So there is resonance to it. Obviously, you see it a lot in political in the political spheres. Anything that you associate your brand with has immediate resonance, either positive or negative. You see it a lot, unfortunately, again, in my old brand, Bud Light. it's just a fact of life. If you associate with somebody that has a strong resonance, you just have to know, your how your audience is going to react. No matter where you are in the side of the aisle, and no matter what your brand is, everything that you do with your brand and every association that you have can have emotional resonance, especially when it comes to ambassadors, and that's very important to know. Now, by the way, that's why influencer campaigns are very powerful. That's why TikTok is such a powerful medium for creating top of mind awareness. Just because that those creators really can connect with the audience in a really powerful way. Now, the last one is the one that I want to spend a little bit more time on. The psychologist, what is it? Howard Gardner is my goat when it comes to marketing psychology. He calls them redescriptions, which basically means thinking of an idea in different ways. I think maybe you have been in a situation in which somebody told you something that at the beginning, maybe for you, like, that's crazy, or I don't really care much about it. And then you see it in a meme somewhere else. And then you see maybe an article in some more time. And then you see another friend telling you about it. And then at that point, like, well, maybe there is something to it. By the way, that is why memes are so powerful. And memes as a cultural tool, or just as a movement for passing ideas, are so incredibly powerful, because basically they convey a central idea in different ways, right? And in presentations, for example, you want to do this, you want to use not only text, but you want to use infographics, you want to use visuals, you want to use metaphors, etc., etc. So let's unpack this, because this is really powerful, and it's definitely one of my favorite ways to bring a brand from perhaps not as an effective message to a battery of messages that are going to be very effective. Let's imagine an example of a brand that is marketing an air purifier. Okay, and it has this advanced technology that maybe initially is presented with like jargon and technical specifications and O2 and etc., which most people are going to be like, I don't know, it's too overwhelming, it's stressing, I don't get it. But if we were going to apply redescriptions, again, our psychologist calls it representational redescriptions, something that you represent in your mind, and you redescribe it for yourself in different ways, each time in a different way. So this brand could say, our air purifier is like having a personal forest in your living room, constantly refreshing your air. Oh, okay. So it's not just a technical piece. It's kind of like a forest. Okay, I get it. And then there's another piece of message that says, imagine these invisible housekeepers working 24/7 to keep your home free from dust and allergens. That is a purifier. Oh, I got it. So that is another way for me to represent the same idea in a slightly different way. And we're like sculptors, cracking that stone until kind of it shapes to the idea that we want to shape. Another redescription: breathe like you're in the mountains, even in the heart of the city, thanks to our air purifier. So again, another redescription, same idea, but it's presented in a different way. And I think this is what is important. Each redescription conveys the same core benefit. That's kind of like our work. This is our homework. What is the core benefit that we want to represent in different ways, that it connects with people and it engages their imagination in different ways? Another example, let's see how we're doing on time. Okay, well, I'm gonna hurry, but we're almost there. Hopefully you've seen this. Please tell me in the chat if you remember this ad, Betty White and the Snickers. Just tell me yes, no. Yes, okay, great. I'm gonna show it anyway because I think it's really fun. But
Mike, what is your deal, man?
Oh, come on, man. You've been riding me all day.
Mike, you're playing like Betty White out there.
That's not what your girlfriend said.
Baby.
Whoa.
Eat a Snickers. Better?
bear.
I'm up it!
That hurt.
You're not you when you're hungry. Snickers satisfies.
So I love it because, I mean, sure. I mean, that's not the most nutritious thing. A chocolate bar, hopefully nobody's like a Snickers, person here. But they went hard on this. Like, what is the instant that we can go for? Like, if somebody, how about we convince them that if they haven't had a meal, just have a Snicker. And we showcase the idea that you're not you when you're hungry. I love how they represented that idea in many different ways. So even if we didn't have Betty White, the idea is so powerful that you can represent it in just people being clumsy, right? Or experientially. I believe they did do this. They changed the label in some. They've done it sometimes. They changed the label to kind of tell somebody, "Hey, you're cranky. Come on, just get a Snicker, so you're not hungry." And that same idea, kept penetrating and keeps penetrating. Print again, like it doesn't have to be a Super Bowl commercial to be effective when you're representing that idea. You're benefiting in a different way. Again, we have this guy. It's hard to see, but it's this guy with not necessarily a mountain bike. And then if you're I don't know who's a fan of Game of Thrones here, remember with the end, hopefully I don't say spoilers, but when she burns a city, like some of the memes already were like, well, she was hungry. And actually here, even the Snickers brand at the time, because they saw that this was working really well, they enabled the audience to kind of run with it. And you saw it, this is an 11-year-old campaign, but you saw it running, you saw that, getting their moment of in the light in popular culture. There is this nurse, and it's kind of dark already, but I just want to show the power of the meme and the power of the idea. Hospital worker arrested for using a dead patient debit card to buy snacks just 17 minutes after the patient passed away. Well, that's tragic, right? It's pretty dark. And of course, somebody on the internet, because that's the internet, put the meme like, well, you're not you when you're hungry, right? To me, it just goes to show the power of the idea of representing the same benefit in different ways and different channels. So far, does this make sense? Just give me a yes, no, in the chat. Is this making sense? Yeah, great. A real quick case study here that we did with Montejo. Montejo is a Los Angeles brand. Was a Los Angeles brand. It's a Los Angeles brand, I should say. That in the Mexican beer market, I mean, geez, you don't need another Mexican beer. Like seriously, you don't. Like there's so many, and they're pretty dominant. But AV decided to launch another brand, and it was just basically lost in the middle of Mexican beers. And it was about to be delisted, and we got this is one of those that we got the freedom to do whatever you want. Like we're gonna delist it in 6 months, so just change it if you want. All right, so we did. And what we thought was like, well, if Pacifico is this thing about exploration, and with the Corona's got the beach, Tecate is in the thing, and maybe it doesn't have any Mexican beers, or didn't have any beer like this. Why don't we do something really different? And what we said is like, let's just go crazy. Let's make this brand be this. Let's make it the Harley Davidson of Mexican beers. Why not, right? And we said, okay, we're gonna take all the cues and all the codes of a badass brand, which is not, it's not Tecate, it's not Pacifico, it's not Modelo, it's not Corona, it's neither of those. And we're gonna own those codes. And so we changed the packaging, we changed the branding, we changed the logo. And basically we started to kind of redescribe the same idea. This brand is like, it's for badass people, for people that, take no prisoners. Are you seeing I don't see if you see the can. Can you see the can? Oh yeah, here it goes, the can. We changed the can. We changed the weight it came across. We got people to get tattoos on. Obviously, social media, we went, with a whole different way of positioning the brand versus it just comes from Mexico, right? This was a brand that, is for those people that, don't give a shit type of thing. And then obviously, not obviously, there's no obviously, but it really got a great reception in trade, relaunch, got good traction again. We saved the brand, but we went all the way, right? And this is the power of redescription, is taking that idea and really not repeating the same idea in the same way for the same channel all the time. It's really about this variety so that the brain starts to see it and gets refreshed from different aspects until we go, I get it. Almost at an unconscious level. It's not about variety only. We have to have a simple, focused idea. If we're changing ideas or if it's too abstract or too complex, it's hard for something like this to work. It needs to be very focused. Snickers is for when you're hungry. Okay, got it. Beer for badass people. I got it, right? It's got to trigger an emotion. Ideally, it's got to confirm pre-existing beliefs. Again, we see that on memes and so on. That's why, again, memes are so important. It has some sort of universal truth. And it gets these like, I got it. Finally, I got it. Like what you see with the memes. After a while, you're like, yeah, you're kind of a doofus if you're not, if you're hungry. Importantly, lots of channels, lots of formats. That is the power of changing somebody's mind, through the representation of the descriptions. So here's where we are. Our brain is a system one machine. Our consumers, all of us, are system one machines for the most part. Our brain spends 20% of the entire body energy. So it doesn't really want to waste it. It wants to be really, really efficient. And therefore it's constantly goal seeking. I'm going to go to the kitchen because I'm thirsty. I'm driving, so I'm not paying too much attention to anything, I'm not consciously paying attention to this, to the steering wheel, because my brain doesn't want to spend energy or waste energy without a purpose, right? It's always trying to optimize resources. And this is the point. Most decisions are automatic and they're aided by emotion, and then later they're justified by logic. So that is one big piece of changing minds through implicit codes and through emotion. Now, in addition, our brain makes decisions based on shortcuts, mental heuristics. In like the technical parlance, they call them cognitive heuristics and cognitive biases. And again, that's why, maybe that's why sometimes, that's how we find ourselves, where we are right now with a lot of tension in society, because, we are basically got nuance and we make a quick decision. And that is also, by the way, that the nature of the brain doing that gives rise to prejudices and biases, right? But at a very agnostic level, a heuristic is just a rule of thumb, like more or less, right? It's not strictly correct, but it's good enough. And it's the accuracy has been sacrificed for efficiency. There is a number of cognitive heuristics that are just part of who we are as humans, but that we also as marketers, the people that are here in this training, we can use to have our audience or consumers obviously think more favorably, try and stay loyal to our products. I'm going to go through some of them, and you will have, hopefully you'll recognize some of them, and you'll certainly have seen some of them. Nudging is that little push, right? It essentially occurs when you want the brain to not work too hard. You want the brain to go like, just make a quick decision. In this instance, the economist is great at that. They highlight the choice that they want people to take, and they emphasize it, our best value, which you see a lot of in the e-commerce site. You want to nudge people. If there's a number of options, give it a nudge. Which one do you want them to take? Priming, another really powerful one. Some of you may know that pharma companies, they basically flood the market with information unbranded of a disease for months before they launch a product. That's actually, that is a real thing. It's not like conspiracy. That's actually a practice, a best practice of pharma. And you see a lot of information. And again, like you come in heavy with media. Well, actually, this thing that you've heard a lot, this restless syndrome, we actually have a drug for that. The way we use it in marketing, of course, is we educate consumers as to the value of, let's say I'm launching a CBD brand, as to the value of having strong muscles in your in your older age, or relaxation, because relaxation has an impact on everything else, etc., etc. And then we go into ours has more CBD than the competition, right? So priming, having that like that initial shaking of the tree for consumers. Next one, you may have seen this decoy effect. This occurs when people's preference for one option over another changes because there's a third option. If we have two choices here, people will go for the cheapest one. But now we have three: small $4, medium $6.50, large $7. This is in research many times. People will choose mostly the large one. You see it in consumer goods today. Okay, you have choose your offer, single subscription $89, best value, they're nudging a little bit, $169, or try once, see how they do the negative nudge. Like, actually don't look at it, but it's still there. Try once, $109, right? And again, the decoy there is they're putting this really expensive one, the $169, so that you go for the $89 price. Next one. Let's see if I'm pushing. It's kind of slow on my side, but can you see my screen? Loss aversion. Can you see loss aversion in your screen? Beautiful. Okay. Again, a very important one. We see it on emails a lot. Last chance, almost out of stock. Don't lose those opportunities. It's just this notion of like people feel more pain, or people are more inclined to avoid a loss than a gain. And the thinking here is in your post-its, in our communication, is there somewhere where we can have this loss aversion tactic, right? And in e-commerce, you see it a lot, like low stock. If somebody's browsing something to buy, only 10 left. You can see that also in emails. This one is the most powerful one. This is a must-have in every communication, especially top of the funnel, middle of the funnel. Social proof, customer reviews, and brag bar, essentially, or icons. I did it a little bit at the beginning, show the companies that I work with. This social proof is especially important in a world where there's so much choice, and the brand just wants to go and make a quick decision. This basically moves the needle more often than not. Next one, and we're almost done. We're a little over the allotted time, and we're three or four slides more. Anchoring. There is this basically cannabis cigar that sold for $11,000 in Vegas. It was golden plated. It was incredible. A lot of buzz about it. And once you see an $11,000 brand from Lera, and then you go to the store and it's only $500, you go like, wow, that's not as expensive, and now I can afford it. So anchoring really refers to device where a person places too much of an emphasis on the initial piece of information. And so you want to anchor with something, especially there's a number of strategies. High-low pricing, so many retailers use a high initial price, they cut it, and then you have the low price. You have a number of strategies to anchor people in the message. Couple more. Framing. I love this cartoon. There is this business owner changing the description of their business. Yeah, that's much better. Framing. I love framing because that is essentially positioning. We did this for one of our customers. Imagine this brand. There's a vape brand, low market share, manual processes. They were really in the middle of nowhere. I love them. Right, like in the south of Washington. Not great packaging. It was run by the mom, the dad, and the daughter, the husband of the daughter. So really kind of small operation. It's tough to compete with like the more urban, gritty, edgy brands, right? Like how do you frame them in a way that is competitive with the buyer of the store, right? And then later with consumers. So here's what we did. It's not a low market share brand. This is premium crafted products. So it is almost intentional that is small. Yes, we have manual processes because we care. It's inspected by humans 4 times, which means you can be sure that the product is safe for you. Yes, it's in a rural location. Actually, no, it's burned in nature, where water and mountains meet, to create community. So we turn that again, it's not from Seattle. No, it's because it's from nature, right? It's from community. Outdated packaging, of course, we redesigned the packaging. And then, yeah, but it's a mom and pop company. Absolutely. It's a proudly family owned and operated that cares a lot for the community. And all our packaging in the back or selling points in conversation with the bartenders or social media is everything about this part. Yeah, we're different from these big guys that have a lot of products that are corporate, that are massive, because we care. And I think that is another important point, like how in our brands, is there something that is perceived as a weakness? How's going to be your framing? How do we frame them in a way that's so-called weakness that becomes something that is a differentiator, if not a strength? And there is a lot. There is a lot of these. I suggest maybe you start, kind of dig into it. It's called cognitive heuristics, priming, nudging, the IKEA effect. The IKEA effect is funny. It's like you have more value for something that you that you built on, that's something you didn't build. If you bought a chair, you can just get rid of it. You spend 3 hours building the chair. It's hard to get rid of it because you are so invested, right? Social proof, decoy effect, loss aversion, availability bias, etc. There's a bunch. Cognitive heuristics. They're massive tools for us to persuade and to gain hearts and minds. And just to conclude, this is what marketing is. You live it every day. Marketing is about changing. It's about change, and specifically for us, marketing is about changing minds. And if we have a map to change minds, which is driven through emotion, and we have shortcuts, which are these cognitive heuristics, and we use implicit codes to convey the information that is going to be more persuasive, we're going to be in a great path for our brands to work. And that is, friends, our session for today for marketing psychology. I'd love to have your thoughts, comments, cases, ideas, challenges.
I'm going to start off with a question of my own as we see questions come in here, people raise their hand, but really quick. We talk a lot to brands about, getting trial and then getting sticky sales. Is trial the emotional piece you described, and sticky sales the redescriptions and rephrasing of the same message a number of different ways? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah,
it's very important. Yeah,
CPG. Absolutely. Most of what we talk today is definitely on the first instance. It's like getting that consumer to notice us, remember us, try us, recommend us. The stickiness. Frankly, a big part of stickiness is product delivery, that the product actually delivers on the expectations. I think where it comes down for us to what we can do is we can frame the expectations. When we sent, we have a CBD brand that it was a tincture, and we said to people, it's going to taste herbal because I wouldn't say all natural, that's illegal to say, but because it's natural, etc., etc. So when people try it and it doesn't taste great, that thing's like, oh my God. But when we reframe that in advance via education, then we have a shot at, helping the product not have to work so hard because the product didn't taste great. It was, it's just, tincture flavor really tastes great. So I think a lot of the heavy lifting is on the acquisition and the trial piece and so on. The stickiness, the product needs to come in place. But also you see things like subscriptions, how to reframe the value of a subscription, for example, in language that makes them feel like, well, I may lose a lot if I love the product, but I should probably get a subscription because, I have this idea that is going to give me a benefit. So really it's both. Thank you, Tom.
No, and I'm looking for questions here. If there aren't any, I'm going to ask another one. How can you really figure out what are those emotional cues? Is it trial and error? Are there ways to understand, at the beginning, where that consumer or how that consumer, what's going to resonate in that short amount of time?
Yeah, I have two shortcuts. Just to not go into we have this methodology. No, there's really two shortcuts. I love them. One is a hardcore analysis of what the competition is doing. Half of them are going to do something that is terrible, but you're going to have a few that are actually quite great. And what you'll find is that there is some sort of baseline of things that you see like, oh, you know what? This seems to be a norm that makes sense. This seems to be a norm that doesn't make sense, but there's a couple of ideas here that are great related to how people are communicating. The other one is speaking to people that sell the product, people that see the consumer on a daily basis, like a bartender, store owner, bartender, somebody that speaks to the consumer, and obviously talking to the consumer with, in a casual environment. Every time I'm advising a wine company, every time that I go to a bar, I ask, a restaurant, why do you drink a beer instead of a wine at lunch? Most people say like, oh, I don't want to get, the wine is too much, or like, I don't want to get a bottle and so on. So there's a bunch of barriers already there. So that is the second one, like just literally asking barriers. And that tells already some of the people that like, oh, this is what's bothering me. And then you figure out a way to make it possible. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does. Other questions? Don't see any other. Oh, there we go. Michael Van Simplest brand. Have you seen issues with some of these tactics causing problems with the authenticity of the
That's
brand?
a great point.
Good question.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you,
a great
Michael.
point. Yeah, that's a great point. I think I usually preface this presentation with an ethics slide. I want to be respectful because everybody here is ethical, but that's a really key point. There are a lot of these actually are used. I think the Congress just launched an initiative against dark patterns, which is like you subscribe to something and then it's really impossible to desubscribe, and like you press a button and you didn't know that actually it was the good one, it was the bad one. It's terrible, right? So these techniques can be used for unethically, and I think the key thing here is being transparent on the benefits and truthful on the delivery of the product. I think if we're doing a benefit for the consumer and the consumer feels it, I think the consumer most often than not is happy to be persuaded that they tried it or that they bought it or that they repurchased. I think it's when they have a bad experience where they feel cheated. But I think if we're going to do something that people are going to love or we're going to exceed their expectations, I think it's fair game.
We have other questions here. I'm not seeing any come in, Jorge. Are there any? Oh, we have another one. Good. Noah the Tea Book. He makes fun tea. We put art, puns, and historical people on our teas. I've got to look for these. People don't realize it's tea, even though we each have a picture of tea, giant light up letter saying tea. What can we do to make obvious that it's tea?
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, I'm curious to see the creative, but I'd love to understand are there implicit codes that tell you immediately that the product is tea. You may have developed creative that feels out of context, and I think there are codes around it that feel tea-like, either a cup or a leaf, the colors, even the type of typography, the choice of typography. Those codes that make it feel more tea-like, but I think it's about context as well. What graphic elements can convey that. Language as well. If there are elements of relaxation, of flavor, of hominess, of coziness, when you use those language cues that are in the semantic world of tea, you're going to trigger the part of the brain that remembers tea from that. So I think it's about that, the semantic cues and context and implicit codes. But I think the creative plays a huge part.
We're almost at time here. Michael has a question. I'm going to let him go.
Good question. Is it always about promoting outcomes and problem solving?
No. I think that, I don't know if to call it the beauty, the interesting part of the neuromarketing and consumer neuroscience and sociology, consumer psychology, it's applied to just how people just make decisions. Priming, for example, priming is a technique that the sole objective is just to get people to think about something instead of something else. So I feel it's really more at a higher level. It's like how people think and how people think about things. Maybe not even necessarily about, I think for our purposes, we want change. We want people to do from here to here, from non-consumer to consumer, from somebody that hates it to somebody that maybe thinks about it, or somebody that will recommend it. That's, I think, us practitioners. At a higher level, the sociologists and the psychologists, I think they look at society like, yeah, people maybe go into these rabbit holes of the internet because they're starting to see so many things that start to make sense for them. Again, the power of the memes, for example, they go into these rabbit holes. I think it's not just about those things. It's about just how people perceive the world and how they encode the world to maybe later make a decision or feel in a different way about something.
Thank you. I know that we're running long here, or short on time, but just as a follow-up, how do you move from soft benefits to converting to, a hard sale outcome? In terms of making people feel good about something to actually them making a decision to take action.
Yeah. I think
I'm sorry. I'll just add an example. Vanity metrics on social media. We have a lot of followers. We have a lot of great imagery or whatever it is. That's not representative of sales. It's representative of other soft benefits.
Yeah. I think depending on the channel, the right metric I think will vary. Social media is a top one because of the vanity metrics. What I do like the most is sentiment and engagement. So when we're dropping a piece of content and we say, who has tried it? Or, what new strain should we launch next, for example? One, there is a call to action. So we're already, we're already pushing people to actually do something, to engage, so there is a behavior piece. I think the CTA is an important component. And the important thing here is not the number of likes or things that literally, to your point, have no value. It's more, what is the metric that approximates the most to a change of perception? And the metric that approximates the most to a change of perception is something that takes effort. DMs back, questions, more than just an emoji. I think in channels where it's harder to measure the final mile of a conversion is like, what is a proxy for a change of mind? And most are not, likes are irrelevant. Impressions are horrible. It's really finding the right proxy.
Thank you.
All right, we are at time here. I want to thank Jorge, and you can find Jorge at growthlegion.com. I put it in the chat, and you can reach him at grow@growthlegion.com. We will provide this recording and the slides. I'm hoping that's okay, Jorge, to everyone.
Yes, absolutely.
As after the meeting here, you'll see it today or tomorrow. If you have questions, reach out to us, Tom at Brandjectory.com, Michael at Brandjectory.com, and certainly look toward everything we do. And thank you again, Jorge, for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everyone. If you want to contact me on LinkedIn, hit me up. Thank you, Brandjectory team. You guys are the best. Love what you guys are doing, and I'll see you all around. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Goodbye,
Okay.
everyone. Nice to
Bye-bye.
have you here. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.